Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Horse Trainers, starring Jason and Bronwyn Irwin. On The Horse Trainers, Jason and Bronwyn will be covering horse training topics such as problem solving, advancing horses, starting colts, working on rider confidence, improving performance horses, liberty training, and more. Now let's saddle up and get started.
Hi folks, I'm Jason Irwin, and in this episode of The Horse Trainers, I'm going to be working with a foal and giving you folks at home some tips on working with your foals, so stay tuned. So this is the foal that we're going to be using here today, and he's just been weaned about a week ago. He's been tied a few times, and he's obviously had a few leading lessons because I obviously had to be able to lead him out here. But other than that, this baby doesn't know a whole lot. He's a real good-natured guy. You probably can see here that he is getting just a little bit wound. This is the first time that he's been led out into a big open area like this. All his leading lessons up to this point have been in a barn, so he doesn't really have a whole lot of space to go if he decides to be a little bit full of himself. But anywho, what I'm going to do with this guy, I'm just going to start off by doing a little bit of groundwork and maybe start to lay the foundation a little bit for teaching this guy to lunge. I'm picking that to start because he obviously has some go here, and I'm going to take advantage of that go. So I'm just going to start out. I'm going to pull this colt where I want to go, and then I'm just going to let go. Now that was a little too quick on my part. I kind of scared him there, but that was my fault. So I'll pick up and then let go. And if he wants to keep walking around me, that's great. But if he chooses to go around and stop, that's fine too. And I'll just pick up on him again. And he goes. He's going pretty good there, isn't he? So around and then let go. And then around, hopefully. There. And then let go. And I'm just going to kind of go along like this. I'll just pick up on him. If he doesn't move, I'll maybe pull just a little bit more. And I'll just do it again. There. Right there was really good. Now I'm going to try to swing his hind end away from me, sort of like that. And then I'm just going to pet on him. Now that might look like just a lot of jumping around, but things were actually working pretty well there. I just want to pick up on him, have him start to move, and then I'll just stop what I'm doing. And I'll pick up again, have him move around me. Now right there, he went around about a circle and a half before he got stopped. And again, I don't care if he gets stopped, but I'm happy that he went that far. Now if he doesn't move, one thing I can do is twirl the rope at him just a little bit to get him started. I'll just show you that right here. So I'll pull on him, wave just a little bit at him, and that creates just a little bit of stimulus there. It's just a way to get him going. Again, I'm going to yield the hindquarters. Very happy with that. That's the second time he's ever yielded his hindquarters in his life, so obviously now it helps if I set it up properly, and that makes life a whole lot easier, but at the same time he's doing a pretty good job. One thing about twirling the lead rope I'm going to point out here though is the foals are usually a little bit on the reactive side. So too much of this and you might just scare them. So a lot of it you can get done just by the pull on the halter rope and just by your sort of your stance and your demeanor, I guess you would say. Same deal. I'll get them to go around me another time or two. And then I'm going to have him yield his hindquarters again. Kind of like so. And swing his butt around. Now I'm going to try him the other way. I'm going to go out here, lift my arm up just a little bit, and if the horse moves at all, I'll stop. Now he went more sideways than forward, but that's okay. That's not the end of the world to start with. Kind of ask him to go around me. That's very good right there. Ask him to go around me again. Now I'm going to yield the hindquarters. Good. And again, this colt hasn't had a lot of handling yet, so he's just at the stage where I can start with this. It really wouldn't have been a bad idea to spend another week or so just playing around with him in the box stall and getting him quiet and used to being handled, but he is at the point where I can get this done. So at the moment here, just because we are in a new location, this baby, if anything, has a little too much go. However, one problem that a person will run into quite a bit with their foals is that they'll get a little bit stuck. And what I mean by that is when you start to teach them to lead, you'll find they lead, but then a lot of times they'll just kind of plant all 4 feet, brace themselves, and if you're not careful, you'll find yourself pulling them around a lot and basically trying to drag them where you want them to go instead of them leading up properly. A big part of that in the early stage is just getting them slightly off balance. So what I mean by that is, say I'm going to walk directly towards you. Nope, don't get crazy here. If I was to walk directly towards you and then the foal was to freeze up, a lot of times what I would do is just step to the side and pull them off balance a little bit. So a lot of the times the foals, when they do get stuck, it's pretty darn simple to fix. You just step one way or the other, pull them off balance, they'll turn to the side, and then usually they'll just kind of step out of it from there and you can keep them going. So be ready to do a lot of zigzags, I guess is what I'm getting at here. However, one thing you can do as well, if you don't have somebody to help you, is have a lariat and you can put the rope around their hind end and just give it a little bit of a tug and get them to come forward off of that. So I'm just going to try to demonstrate that here. Again, this is the last problem I'm actually having right now with this particular baby because he has more go, not more woe, but I think you can get the idea from it. So I'm just going to take this rope, make a little loop in it, and then carefully I'm going to set this down over his hind end. There. And again, this is in some ticklish places, so some of them aren't going to like this the first time. But what I would do here, again, I'll just give him a second. I will ask him to step forward. I'll put a little pressure on it, and you'll probably see his hind end kind of scoot under him a little bit. And I'm just going to do that again. I'll step forward, put a tiny bit of pressure on the butt rope, and a lot of times this is just enough to get them to step ahead. That's good right there. Now I got to be a little bit careful I don't have him step right on top of me, but he's going to do a pretty good job, I think, here. So I'll back up again, little bit of pressure, and again you kind of see his hind end just kind of scoots up under himself, and this is just a way to get yourself started if you have one of those babies that's freezing up all the time. Just be very gentle and very patient with this though. Don't go out here and give a great big yank on it because your baby's going to get a bit upset. You just want to be real gentle, put a little bit of pressure on the halter rope. If they don't start moving forward, a little bit of pressure on the butt rope. As soon as they come ahead like that, be real quick to scratch and pet on them, and pretty soon I think you'll have them leading pretty quick. So one thing you may run into with your foal is that he may have quite a few what I would call ticklish spots. And what I mean by that is areas on his body or her body that the baby does not like you touching. Usually that's the belly, the legs, sometimes around the hindquarters. Anyways, now this foal has had its feet picked up before, but it's obviously not where it's just perfect yet. So what I'm going to do here is just take this stick, and I'm intentionally using one that doesn't have a lot of bend to it. I don't want a whippy action going on here. I just want a firm feel. I'm just going to take and kind of rub over this baby's body, and I'm just going to turn him back around here so you get a little better look. So just kind of rub down his body. Now this area they're usually not too touchy about. But then what I'm going to do, I'm going to start working my way kind of along his hindquarters here. And sometimes this area they'll get a little bit funny about. And then from there you can start you can start working down their legs. And I find when you work down their legs, it's better to work down a little bit and then back up again. And then down a little bit farther and then back up again. And then you can get down quite low, but keep going back up. If you stay down there until they really start acting up, sometimes it's hard to find a good quitting point. It's better to go down, have a little bit of success, and then get back up again before things go wrong. And you do the exact same thing with the front legs. You kind of rub here, then rub down, then rub back up here, then down again. You know, just kind of keep playing with that. Also too, once it's going good, just take the stick away and just go back into scratching an area where they're not even remotely touchy about. Now again, with this baby here, we're outside here for the first time in the big wide open with him. Being totally honest, I would probably just do this in a box stall the first time or two. We're doing it out here just for the sake of filming. It's kind of hard to get a good light in the box stall, and out here obviously offers a lot better light, but it is making this job just a little bit harder than it needs to be, just because this baby is seeing a lot of distractions. But I'll just play here on this side again, kind of rub in an area that the colt is probably not going to care about. Then I'll just work my way back. I'll just swing him back around here so you get a better look. Work my way back on him, start playing around his hindquarters. Work my way down the leg, back up, down the leg, back up, down the leg. Do the same thing with the front leg. Work my way down and then back up again. And work my way down and back up again. And I would spend longer on it than what I'm showing you here, but just go through the same routine, but just take a little bit longer with it. So a question that we get a lot is, how soon in a horse's life can a person start preparing to have that horse saddled? Now, being honest, I'm not going to throw a saddle on a baby, but at the same time, you can get them used to what will be a saddle pad or a saddle blanket almost as soon as they're old enough to get your hands on. So it's something that it's not very difficult, and actually it doesn't take very much time if you want to get started on it. So I'm just taking this little old saddle blanket here. And to start off, I'm just going to back away from the foal and have him follow it just a little bit. And then I'll just take it away, let him sniff on it. And then I'm just going to go out here, rub him lightly on the neck, and then take it away again. And I'm going to rub him lightly on the neck, and then take it away. And because he is a little bit antsy, I'm just going to do this for a second and then just keep on backing away from him, just so he doesn't kind of get too all over the place on me here. Let's come around here. I really like it when they can follow the thing that I'm trying to get them used to. It just builds up their confidence. I'll kind of rub over on them. Do one side at a time if you're going to do this. Don't throw it right over the foal. Just do one side, get them pretty good, and then do the other side. So kind of just rub down them there. And with the foals, sometimes they can be just a little bit too handy with their feet, so I don't worry as much about getting down in the leg area at this point. I care more about just rubbing down their back, partway down their hindquarters. Again, even the hindquarters on some of the foals, they can get a little bit sensitive and a little bit kicky. So as long as I get basically the top of the hind end, I feel like that's pretty good. I don't really care about getting all the way down there and getting a chance of getting kicked. So again, I'll just have the baby follow me here. Rub on them a little bit. Kind of rub over, kind of like so. Again, if you have this folded up, it really isn't very scary in the scheme of things. So usually a person can get their foal used to this type of thing relatively quickly. Another thing you can do once they're doing pretty good, just let out the blanket a little bit and kind of not throw it on, but just sort of toss it up light. This kind of motion here will get one later on where they're really ready to have a saddle thrown on them for the first time, and it'll be pretty easy. And I'll do it on this side as well. And instead of just setting it on there, I'm going to reach up and almost sort of throw it on the way a person might throw a saddle on. And a couple of minutes spent on this, it can be surprising how much grief it can save you later on. It's real easy, it's real quick, and it can save you some real problems too. So it's good time, very well spent. So I'm going to go ahead here and try to load this foal for the first time. And trailer loading is one of those things that's a lot easier when they're small than it is when they're big. So if you can start early on your baby and get them loading right off the hop, you're going to make life a lot easier on yourself. So I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to get in the trailer. And I'm just going to keep his nose dead center here. I want the foal looking in the trailer, but I'm not really going to pull on him to try to get him in. A lot of times their own curiosity will take over and they'll just sort of find their way in here. Now, if we were here for 20 minutes, then obviously I'm going to start putting a little bit of pressure on the halter. I want this door to swing. But for the moment, I'm just going to keep his nose straight. All right, that worked even better than I hoped it would. I'll just turn him around. Same thing with coming off. I'm not going to try to pull him off. Oh, easy. Now, this foal's loaded on the trailer once. However, on their first loading session, I would like to have them go on and off maybe 3, 4, 5 times. And that way there, I feel like they actually understand that they can get on the trailer, not that I just got lucky and they happened to walk on that day for me. So I'm just going to come around here. I'm going to repeat all the same steps, not that there was that many. Keep his nose dead center. If the foal wants to look down and smell the trailer or anything along that line, I think that's totally fine. However, what I don't want him to do is look off in the distance, because if he's looking anywhere to the sides, I know that he's not really focused on the trailer, therefore he's probably not going to load in the trailer. So my only job is to keep his nose relatively straight and then basically wait him out. Again, right there. That's pretty darn good. Now, once they get in the trailer, I think it's a really good idea. Rub and pet on them, and he's being real good. But if you had one that was getting really nervous here, I would rub and pet on them for 3 or 4 seconds and then get them off again pretty quick. The nervous ones, I don't try to keep on very long. The ones that are a little bit calmer about it, I think you can leave on for a little bit longer before you take them off again. Again, sometimes they're not very graceful getting off in the very beginning of their training. Just go slow. Good. And then I'll kind of scratch on him again here. I'll load him maybe one more time. And just because it works once or twice, don't get in a rush. Just give them really as long as they need to figure their way out of this. Again, same deal. I'm not really going to pull him on. I'm just going to keep his nose dead center of the trailer. And that's one thing about the foals. They are curious in most cases. So if you can use that curiosity to your advantage, you're going to make life a lot easier on yourself. Now, as good as this foal has been about this, if I was to come up here and try to drag him into this trailer, chances are he's going to wrestle quite a bit with me. And although he's not real big yet, these little guys are pretty strong and they can pull a person around pretty easy. So it only makes sense to do this the easiest way that you can. Be real slow with them. Now again, this guy was going a little quicker maybe than average, but if it took 5 minutes, that's fine. Let it take 5 minutes. Good. So I'm real happy with that. Now, a lot of times a person's going to want to build up to having it where their horse can be sent into a trailer, but I really wouldn't start with that if I was dealing with a baby. I think this way here is just easier for them to figure out, and anything that makes the initial training with the trailer easy, I think is the way a person wants to go. Just make it simple, get the job done. You can refine it out later and send them on at a later point. When you're working with your foals, there are a few tips that I would like to give you. Probably the first one, and I think the most important one, is to make sure your foal has good manners. Now, foals, everybody knows, are cute and fuzzy, and everybody wants to hug them and play with them as much as you can, but at the same time, if a person loses respect from their horse, even at that early age, it can be really difficult to get it back later on. So I think a person wants to make sure their foal has good manners right from the beginning. A lot of times a person will let some things slide when a foal is young. They'll let the foal nip them a little bit, maybe threaten to kick, push into them, just generally be a little bit rude, and they look at it as kind of being a little bit funny, but it's not funny when that horse is grown up and weighs 1,200 pounds. So if you can keep in mind to make sure those manners are in place when your foal is young, you'll make life a lot easier on yourself for later on. Another thing that I think it's a good idea to keep in mind is keep your training sessions with your foals relatively short. I don't really think it helps a whole lot to go out and work with your foal for an hour or 2 or 3, because I think after a while they just get dull and desensitized to the point that they really don't care about what you're doing at all. It's a lot more effective to go out, work with your baby for 10-15 minutes, have a good session. If you'd like to work with them again later in the day, maybe come back a few hours later and have another little short session. But just working with them non-stop, I think if anything gets them a little bit dull and a little bit disinterested in what you're trying to show them. I hope you really enjoyed this episode of The Horse Trainers. If there are any topics or training questions that you would like covered in a future episode, just head on over to our website, www.thehorsetrainers.com, fire us off an email, and hopefully we'll get to your topic in a future episode. Bye for now.